a Sirwanga, not a Sirwanga at all. Leader Fan Radio Network.
What do you mean?
And KFAN.com. 3 minutes and 9 seconds past 3 Central Daylight Time. It is a Thursday edition of the Afternoon Aardvark on a pretty pleasant, yet I think it's the calm before the next heat Nami. Thursday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. It's Dr. Dan's Inbox Day today. And it's never too soon or never too late to contribute. JG at KFAN.com. We are scheduling tentatively the inbox for a 4:30 arrival. That gives you 90 minutes to get in on the fun, if you would like, and the frivolity, and the satire, and perhaps even the snark. Guardsy's in charge of that. He's the producer of the program. My name is Dan Barreiro, former Inkstand Wretch, newspaper of the Twin Cities. We are going the distance yet again today until 6:30. Do we know our Vikings weekday schedule yet? In other words, will we be out routinely again at 6 because of Vikings programming on Thursdays, or is it a different day, or do we know any of that yet? Is any of that determined?
It could be. I assume it's Thursday.
You just assume it's the same day.
Yeah, it's been the same for many, many years, so unless...
Might there be a second day we're out at 6?
I don't think so,
Oh.
But I don't know. If it has not been communicated.
Our first day of training camp is right around the corner, correct?
A week from Monday, I think.
Is that our first day on the perch?
Yeah, Monday, August 3rd.
That's the KOC day.
That's what we're told.
At least that's the way it stands now.
BYOW, bring your own water.
Yeah. Wonder what kind of... It would be hard for him to top the foo-foo fancy water he delivered last year.
Right.
But maybe he comes with feed bag instead. That's probably a little complicated for him if he's coming right off the practice field.
Yeah,
right?
you'd have to...
Well, somebody could hand it to him.
That's true.
That's like they handed him the waters.
That's true.
I mean, you don't really think he went and got the waters himself, do you?
He may have.
You think so?
He's KOC,
Are you
man.
that naive?
He's KOC. He's a personal touch kind of guy.
I see.
He's collaborative. He's aligned.
I see.
He's a little detailed personal touch kind of guy.
I had no idea.
Before he walked out to practice that day, he probably looked at John Ekstrom or his guy, Jeff Anderson, and said, hey, remember,
that fancy water?
Don't let me forget that water for Dan. You know what? He probably calls you Danny, like your old writing buddies.
Yeah.
Don't let me forget that water for Danny.
Okay. All right. We'll see. I look forward to that, but that is very much right around the corner. In fact, to that end, Alec Lewis is scheduled to join us today. Is he in studio or by phone?
He'll be by phone.
And do we have a time set yet?
5:30.
5:30 is now confirmed. Alec Lewis, 5:30 tonight. We will see if he has a retort to the allegation we discussed at the start of the program yesterday from, is it Steve Smith, former wide receiver?
Yes.
Who referred to Kyler Murray as a check down Charlie. Lewis is into all those analytics, man. He's got numbers. He's got too many numbers, probably. But we'll see what he thinks about that, if he's already done a deep dive into that particular allegation and what impact it might have on the future. I was told during the relay, the baton exchange, that PA has predicted that if Carson Wentz is the starter on opening day for the Vikings, they will start the season 5-1.
And that's a fact.
I heard that as well.
Have we figured out whether he got good reaction to the original Carson Wentz stuff and said, let's just have fun with this. Let's just keep going with it. Or do you think he actually believes it? Is there something he thinks he knows about Carson Wentz, or even about what KOC thinks? Because we've all assumed, Kevin Seifert seemed to assume yesterday, it's a two-horse race for the starting quarterback position, that it's not even feasible. How do you get three people with the right kind of reps, working with the starters the whole bit? How's that even possible?
It's really not. I don't think it is.
So do we have a handle on it yet? On PA? Have any theories been offered up?
Well, I heard Common Antenna kind of talking it out as well. Mm-hmm. And it's there's two theories. It's either that he's been told something. He thinks he knows something.
Yeah. A tell?
Yes.
So is he making a call?
Might be making a Burt Blyleven call,
right,
for the kids. Or there's somebody reminded them that at some point he was really down on Kyler, like years ago when he was playing for the Cardinals. And so maybe
PA was?
Apparently.
Interesting.
And so the theory is maybe he doesn't want to reverse course. He knows that he can't now go, Kyler's the greatest ever, if he was just trashing him like 2 years ago.
Is it possible he is channeling, PA is channeling Tim Collishaw?
Could be. Maybe he heard the podcast.
Dallas Morning News and a confirmed Kyler Murray hater. I mean, he insisted, he demanded an audience on our show after like 8 months.
Yeah.
Just to tell us, to warn us about just how big a mistake the Minnesota Vikings were making.
He had to get it off his
investing in him
chest.
at all. Yeah, that's
Here's
true.
my question, though.
Yeah.
So we're going to start 5-1. So who's the loss? We've got the Packers at home, at the Bears, at Tampa, Miami at home, at the Saints, bye week, and then the Colts at home.
Probably
the opener or the Bears?
Bears, probably.
The Bears in Chicago? He doesn't think Carson Wentz can go into the House of Pain, Soldier Field,
you're not
and
going to
get a
win
dub?
every game. I mean, you're not going to be the greatest quarterbacks ever don't go undefeated. 5-1 would be a good start.
It would, but I'm just
5-1 would mean he'd be your starting quarterback the rest of the season unless his arm falls off again.
Right.
Because he gets nailed so many times by a porous offensive line.
Pass blocking.
Yeah. I'll look at it.
There you go.
What did I say at the start of the show? I mentioned that we are indeed your when is a Sirwanga, not a Sirwanga at all. In KFAN afternoon aardvark parlance, a Sirwanga named after a former Vikings cornerback named Waswa Sirwanga is a backpedal. Let's just say that when he was a corner here, it felt like that's all he could do. It's just backpedal and backpedal some more and backpedal some more. Not so good at actually ever stopping to cover the receiver that was supposed to be in his zip code, in his vicinity. But it became synonymous with backpedal. Now, backpedal in the sense I'm talking about today has nothing to do with football. It has to do with really full pelfing it, right? Or, shall we say, declaring one thing and then upon further review saying that was a pretty stupid thing for me to say. Or if you're a pitcher, a Sirwanga is, or I guess you could say a full pelf would be, I pitched 6 innings. No, I pitched three and 2/3 innings, gave up 6 runs, walked 5. I didn't help my team win today. It's on me. No one else's fault. My defense didn't fail me. My hitters didn't fail me. I failed myself. But sometimes it's you say something moronic and then you're under heavy pressure and you say, I got to backpedal out of that. I don't know what I was thinking. I got to take the pressure off. Now, more recently for us, it's we rank these on the PELF scale. A full PELF would seem like a pretty legitimate attempt to hold yourself responsible for something you said or did, right? Half PELF would be what you'd think, a decent job maybe, but certainly not as effective as a full PELF. A 0 PELF would mean no one's buying your effort. It sounds feeble even at the front end. And we're here early to examine one of the worst backpedals in the history of Sirwangas, and a PELF scale rating that we've talked about. Is there such a thing as a -2 on a PELF scale rating? I don't know. That's like maybe saying, well, I'm going to compete at 110%. 110% doesn't exist. So if you want to say an utterly and completely failed PELF on the PELF score would be a 0, I would say the one we're about to discuss has to rank as a 0. Some of you may be aware of it, some not. It's the latest in an endless series of Caitlin Clark-related controversies. In this case, it involves a sports columnist for USA Today named Nancy Armour. She has been there for pretty much ever. I think she's been there for a very, very long time. By the way, has Christine Brennan, who also writes for USA Today, has she commented on what Nancy Armour wrote, what she alleged, and Armour's attempt at full pelfing? Have we heard anything from Chris Brennan yet responding to Nancy Armour?
Not on social media. Okay. I don't know if she's made a TV appearance or anything, but not on social media.
Okay, so apparently, this is according to TMZ Sports. Armour is allegedly trying to backpedal out of a column that for one section may well rank as one of the most shrill and over-the-top and preposterous observations made in sports writing history. And that's saying a lot, recency bias, etc. So we'll get to what exactly she said in the original column here in a minute. Well, actually, her quote, which is her reaction now to all the blowback, to a certain extent, introduces the subject. So today, this is Thursday, correct?
Yeah.
I don't know if she said this via a statement, if she said this via her Insta, X. I'm not.
Statement on X.
This is a statement on X. In my recent column, I made an inartful comparison. By the way, you lose me right there, correct? Because inartful almost seems like, well, there's a legit comparison to be made. I just didn't handle it very well. I made an inartful comparison between basically the Caitlin Clark fans coming to her defense with the murder of Emmett Till. I intended to connect the issues the WNBA is currently facing with its All-Star game being hosted in Till's hometown of Chicago. I obviously did not provide enough context for that. That's a zero pelf, isn't it? Don't even bother. Because what you're saying is, well, if I would have explained it better or fleshed it out more, it would have been perfectly rational and understandable to compare the reaction of Caitlin Clark fans coming to the defense of their favorite player with Emmett Till, a black kid being lynched for an assault that he had absolutely nothing to do with in the South. One of the most infamous, sickening moments in the history of the United States. Going back, what is it, about 100 years? Almost 100 years now. A little less than that. I'm sometimes left speechless, which isn't good on talk radio. But I am today. To further my point that she shouldn't even bother with the back pedal. However, this point stands. There is a history in this country of perceived threats to white women being weaponized against African Americans and the danger that poses to black players in the league. Players have been abused online and have reported receiving death threats. That has to be taken more seriously. Now, there's no one who has not taken that more seriously or ripped that or criticized it or called that out. She's inventing a line of thinking that she somehow discovered this, and not enough people are outraged enough regarding the threats that were taking place. But I can't imagine a more sickening analogy, metaphor, whatever the case may be, whatever the right term is here, to whatever you think about the way Caitlin Clark has handled herself, the way she's being treated, whatever, that you decide you're going to attempt to link that, to make your point, to get people's attention to a lynching almost a century ago. That in itself is dangerous. That in itself is frightening. I like the way, I'll try to get the name of the individual who wrote this, who attempted, I think, to lay it out very nicely. Even as a fan, I believe Caitlin Clark does complain too much, and she can be overly dramatic. But that is not where Nancy Armour took this nonsense. Instead, she connected two debatable basketball plays, a disgusting racist message, and the murder of Emmett Till to argue that Clark is somehow putting other players in danger. This is an enormous and irresponsible leap. Chelsea Gray is not responsible for the racist abuse directed at her. Caitlin Clark is not responsible for the behavior of every unstable or hateful person who watches her play. Trying to place any of that burden on Clark because she argued for a foul call is stupid. The Emmett Till reference should be, although it isn't, actionable in court. Clark did not falsely accuse anyone of a crime. It's the Emmett Till case. Look it up if you're not familiar with it. She reacted to contact during a basketball game. Comparing that to false accusations being used to justify racial violence is not only disproportionate, but disrespectful to the history being invoked. And that's the most important point again. You are actually trivializing one of the most horrific, violent moments in this nation's history for all it seemed to symbolize about the state of race relations in this country, at least once upon a time. And to think you have, I'll say it, as a white person, the opportunity, I'm going to invoke Emmett Till to sound like you're smarter or more sensitive. What you're doing is you're trivializing that case, attempting to in any way, shape, or form connect it. Guardsy, this is the thing. This thing is so out of control, and people have gotten mad at us because, not mad, frustrated because they think we've been too protective of her, or we've talked about it too often. How can we not talk about the climate that has led to somebody actually deciding this made sense to be put down on paper or on a computer? Well, I mean, that's the question. How did we get here? That was even among the possibilities in terms of what has been brewing, what has been percolating ever since she came into the league. A basketball player who does whine too much, who does, I think, there are days where I think she's getting even more melodramatic than she was before. But then the stats remain that in terms of like flagrant fouls, she laps the field and being the receiver of them, right? So the steps, I mean, in a sense, you could say this vindicates all the conversation we've had on this. That we could ever reach the point where somebody in a national newspaper,
right? One you can't really fake your way to all that much.
That felt compelled that this is where I'm going to go with this story. And in doing so, if you read the column in its entirety, leaving out conveniently so much of that history. Because if you're going to do the deep dive and you're going to hold Caitlin Clark responsible, which I have no problem with, I mean responsible for her own actions, you have to tell the rest of the story. You have to tell what she has been subjected to from the beginning. Sometimes out loud, sometimes in a sneaky sort of undercurrent fashion. So, again, I think I'm actually, as floored as I was reading the original column,
yeah,
I'm actually more offended by her alleged clarification. Don't even bother, don't insult the intelligence of your listeners or viewers or readers in this case by attempting to turn this to, it was an unartful attempt, but then in the next paragraph say, basically, everything I say is true and I stand by every word of it. Then don't bother. Don't bother with any attempt to sort of put it in any sort of context. There is no context.
No.
There's just
needless.
no context for this. You just shake your head and say, what it comes off as again is another attempt to protect the culture within this league we all understand that threats of violence are non-starters. They should not be tolerated. We also know that everybody in positions of authority, black, white, etc., in this day and age, get an extraordinary number of threats that aren't real threats in many cases. They're just ugly, verbal taunts, comments, etc. Check the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. I won't even repeat some of the stuff. I've ignored some of the stuff that comes in. There's some you don't even know about. We get that part. But to me, it was almost like, again, that she's treating Clark as this interloper. Now, she claims, I love her. I don't have anything against her.
Right.
But it's almost like she's doing the bidding of the individuals who, from the day that she came in, has served to make her a villain of sorts, which has never made any sense to me. But I'm not big on, I'm going to cancel my subscription. I don't have a subscription to USA Today. I don't ever encourage that. But I tell you what, if I were inclined to that, it's probably the kind of piece I'd say, I'm done. I can't. There's no going back on that because, again, in your clarification, is there anything in that clarification that says, I've really given this some thought? There's a lot of other ways I could have made the point I did, even bringing race into the conversation, than going down that particular road. And to say, here's the really pathetic part, above and beyond all else. She says, let's see, All-Star games in Chicago.
Right.
Emmett Till was a Chicago kid. Oh, ding, ding.
Perfect. They've got an exhibit about his life this weekend.
God, man.
I've got my paragraph.
I can't even imagine a more insulting notion when it comes to cheapening that horrific, grisly moment in U.S. history. But it was she thought she had something. Aha. I got it. This will really... No, you're allowed to think beyond wherever your head is on a story like this and say, no. What the hell difference does that make? It's almost like, Caitlin, you should have realized when you complain, you should have remembered. Caitlin, were you aware where the All-Star game was this year?
Right. Did they teach history at Iowa?
Do they have any idea? Well, remember, that's where Emmett Till is from. It's mind-blowing. And sadly, sooner or later, I'm sure there'll be a few people, sensitive people, who will probably come to her defense. This bottom of the hour break here, Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line will be rebooted as soon as we get the hip cricket going, 646-86. But first,
The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. The first keyword of the afternoon is dollar. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword dollar.
You're listening to Barreiro on The Fan.
From the...
Play this out a little bit. In effect, Caitlin Clark, who's probably played basketball since she was 4, whenever it was, you may know. I don't know how far back it goes. She strikes me as someone who played almost as soon as she could start dribbling a basketball.
Agree.
Correct?
Yep.
Whatever it was. Once you start playing, there is a politics to basketball. On the court, it's basically how much you're going to complain, how much you're going to try to get the attention of referees. And we've all evaluated male and female players who do that in our eyes too much. Well, I shouldn't say our, because different people have different thresholds. But you get my point. We all make these evaluations. And when is this much too much, or is that okay, or is it more calculated, or whatever the case may be. She's done it her whole life. So now she's put in a position. She's already been put in a position before she came into the league that she needs to make sure she understands she didn't invent this league, and the league was made available and built by other individuals before her. That was pounded into her at lecture after lecture. It's not basketball anymore, Caitlin. You're not allowed to just explore it as this is your next level as a professional basketball player. You're obligated to think of it the way we believe you need to. It's not, you don't even have a choice. Can't be about basketball anymore. Now she's being told, again, whatever you think of her strategy and her approach when it comes to referees, but that no longer is good enough because it might lead to death threats to players. Think about the insanity of that, or at least holding her responsible, because what she's doing is basketball stuff, basketball etiquette. We all, again, can say, I don't like her basketball etiquette. I'm tired. Too often, man. Stop. It's too much. That's all fair game. But in her eyes, I'm sure she's saying, well, this is the way we've always done stuff. Now, on the basis of this column and others, it's, well, better be careful, because if you do that, here's what we're going to hold you responsible for. Not the lunatics who do whatever they do sending these threats. Not them. It's going to be on you. So you have to change your deportment utterly and completely. Further example that this league is not ready for the big time. Now, I'll say I'm not associating players with what Armour has written. Although I won't be surprised if, like I said, I'll be shocked if we don't hear people say, well, she may have gone a little too far here, but there's an important point to be made. But that's the implication of this, isn't it? You can no longer do the things you do to play basketball. For better or for ill, you're now responsible above and beyond that for the health and safety of other players, which is, again, hilarious because her health has been called into question by, in fact, the way she has tended to be treated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
just
remarkable.
When you think there's not another bridge to cross in the Caitlin Clark
exactly
conversation.
Right. Yeah.
We've had so many. By the way, this
one
happened.
I never saw coming.
No,
I never
could you?
saw this. I mean, I've got an imagination for how preposterous people can get on this story. I didn't have this one in me. It was not on my bingo card. Emmett Till. Oh, my
This
God,
is her third season in the WNBA. She's 2 years removed from college, basically. All of this has happened in 2 years. When you think about, because I've seen a lot of Iowa reporters, kind of comment on all of this stuff, but certainly comment on the Nancy Armour piece and the reaction to it. And Scott Docterman just put out a bunch of pictures, and he's like, he's a big Iowa writer, writes for The Athletic, more of a national guy now. But he put out a bunch of pictures from the Iowa run, kind of how it all built, and they played a game at Kinnick and the Final Fours. And he's like, we've gone from all of this where it was joy and this groundswell and bringing people to the game. And he goes, in 2 years, it's turned into literally the opposite on a million different things. It's crazy.
We talk about images all the time. Did she mention, Nancy, in the piece, the image, the still shot of the hand on the throat when Clark's on the ground? I doubt it. If she did, I don't remember it. And she certainly didn't put any weight on it as being meaningful. Because, see, that's the irony of this. If let's just say, for the sake of this discussion, the player on the ground on her back is a black player in this league. And it's Caitlin Clark's fist on her throat. Not punching, but just on her throat as she gets up. What do you think Nancy Armour's going to do with that? She's going to have a field day. The symbolism of what... Do you understand our history in the United States of America? So she would turn a basketball play, if the roles were reversed there, into something completely different. There's not any question in my mind. And so that's my point about, well, don't dismiss, not on a symbolic level, but just in terms of the act itself being worthy of suspension and indicative of the fact that Caitlin Clark, in her mind, she calls her a flopper repeatedly in there.
Yeah, and maybe
she is.
Yeah.
Although somebody had another stat saying players flop with her as much as anybody in the league to try to get her in foul trouble.
I'm sure
it's
they do.
all part of the deal.
Yeah.
But you can't dismiss the acts of physicality that are convenient for you, that you don't that get in the way of your point, and just remember the ones that contribute to the notion that Caitlin Clark's bringing this all on herself. She's a flopper. She's being way too dramatic on pretty much everything. It's stunning. The amount of responsibility this still young woman, how old is she now, 24?
23 or 4, yeah. Can't be much older than that.
It's astonishing. And again, what's also sad, and we've chronicled this, the number of times she has made it her mission to acknowledge the history of this league and how it was built and who it was built by.
By the way, she's like the only player that's ever been asked to do that.
Exactly it.
Yeah.
And that's just summarily dismissed. Why? Because it doesn't fit the narrative that you're looking for there. It's amazing. Absolutely remarkable. By the way, did the Twins end up winning today or losing?
They were up 3-1 at last
good for
check.
them.
Yeah, they scored in the 12th,
They were down,
I think, 1-0.
They were down 1-0 in the 8th, tied it in the 8th, and then that's when I got out of the car, so I didn't get to so we ended up winning.
They did win 3-1.
In extras.
Yes, in 12 innings, Keishel got the game-winning hit, singled to left, then Lewis scored on an error there. I'm sorry, Larnach actually got the game-winning hit, and then we added on an insurance run. Keishel did that. That was in the top of the 12th.
That's even better, isn't it?
Yeah, why not?
Is that the rubber game?
It was. Well, we got the split.
Oh yeah, we got the split. That's right. That's a 4-game series.
Yeah, we won last night 10-6, and then we get the victory today, so we split the 4-game series.
Do we move closer? Do we move closer to staying in alleged buy mode? Did we stave off the crisis? Because we won the first game, post All-Star game. Then we lost. Was it 4 out of 5?
Yeah,
I think we lost 4 of the next 5.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 5 out of 6. Whatever it is, now we end up splitting after losing the weekend series, correct?
Yes.
So is that enough now to stay as I say alleged buyer because we don't really know that we're going to buy.
Right. We lost 4 in a row after the Cubs victory.
Yeah.
And then split with the Guardians. So we're 2.5 games back of the final wild card spot. We're 5 games back of the White Sox for first place in the AL Central. Pulled within a game of Cleveland. Who knows? 2 more weeks, basically. Actually, about a week and a half.
Yeah, it's close now,
Monday,
right?
August 3rd. Yeah, our first day of training camp. Remember how many trade deadline days we've had at training camp? Remember the best one? We had Falvey on at like 6 o'clock when we
that's right.
bought everybody.
That's true.
It was the greatest trade deadline day ever.
Including a couple guys were hurt, right? Didn't we end up buying somebody who was damaged goods?
Yeah, immediately. There was also a guy that I think had like some immediate domestic violence investigation against him. That didn't help. But at the time, all we could go on was that they were buying. And it was so rare. Might not have done enough due diligence on character or injuries, but we were at least buying. We made some moves.
Yeah.
That was one of the great days.
It was. It feels like, well, you can't say it's all downhill since then because since then we did win a playoffs game in series, right?
We did.
So it got a little better then, but then there have not been very many of those moments. I mean, we can probably count them on one hand, positive moments.
Yes,
since then, correct?
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, since then, agree.
Sad but true. We got tons of texts coming in. We'll get to some of those when we come back. I want to, Dan Minnesota's got a good series of on this date in Minnesota sports history to get to. But there's also a national on this day in sports history that I want to remind the audience of. And I'm guessing 75% of our audience will have very little recollection of this particular moment, but it's worthy of discussion for a couple of reasons. By the way, I'm getting some clarification from Project fans that what PA has said isn't that Wentz is going to start. What he is saying is if the Vikings made him the starter at the start of the season, the Vikings would go 5-1. So I don't think he's predicting it. He's almost saying, well, I don't believe he's going to be given much of a chance. He seems to be saying if he were given a chance to be in this mix or just anointed for whatever reason as the starter, that the Vikings would start 5-1.
Well, then what are we even talking about? Why did we bring Kyler Murray in here then? Why did we go through all of this?
Serious question. Also, when we come back, a couple people have said, Dan, you've worked in a newspaper office. You used to be an editor. How does this analogy get past the editor.
I wondered that too.
There are some thoughts to get to on that, believe it or not, that I think might surprise you. But we'll get to some of that, and we'll keep an eye on, as I mentioned, that event from a long time ago on this very day in not Minnesota sports history, but American sports history. And don't forget Alec Lewis, as I said, at 5:30. Dr. Dan's Inbox at 4:30.
This is Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barreiro on the Fan.
It's with Cheryl Swoops and Tarika Foster Brasby.
Another thought just entered my head. If you want to play the game the way Nancy Armour is playing it, and many others not to that level, I can do it. And I can now say that Nancy Armour has put Caitlin Clark in harm's way. That her words, the warning she lays out about the responsibility Caitlin Clark has, might encourage some nut job to do something to Caitlin Clark. And again, there are limits to how far we should go with that for reasons that should be obvious. It has to be individuals held accountable. But when you start getting into that safety game, be careful what you wish for there, because it can, in this environment, on the basis of that one column, you could argue Clark has a right to say, who is endangered right now on the basis of that analogy in terms of the amount of power I have and apparently responsibility? It's so destructive. On the brink of the All-Star break, too. Good year, a lot of good stories, a lot of good players emerging. The Lynx, as good a story as any in the league right now.
Yeah, it should be.
It's absolutely remarkable. Okay.
Do you think this will carry over now to All-Star Weekend? Do you think Clark will be asked about it?
100%.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. And other players will say, did Nancy Armour have a point? I mean, it will be a subject that will, I don't think, I doubt that it will go away. We'll see.
So you've got that and the Sophie Cunningham.
Oh, that's right.
She's probably loving today. Although she gave, I thought, a good answer yesterday when she was asked to kind of clarify or talk more about her comments, and I thought handled that really well.
I did too, but she's at a disadvantage. I'll just leave it at that. Where was I? Oh, a lot of good on this day in Minnesota sports history to discuss. Example, this is from Dan Minnesota. What year were you born?
1982.
Yeah, so this was 7 years before you were born. 1975, the U announces men's basketball violations.
That would have been Musselman?
I think that would have been Muss, right?
Yeah, there were a lot.
Yeah. But that maybe was a precursor that should have given you an idea before you were born that this is just sort of part of the landscape here. 1996, I remember this well. Despite the best efforts of Chris Eisen and the late, great Paul McEnroe to ruin the deal simply by covering the news of Isaiah Ryder's latest arrests, the Wolves still found a buyer for him. They traded Isaiah Jr. J.R.J. Ryder to the Portland Trailblazers in 1996 on this date. What did we get back for him? I don't even remember. Will you look up what we got back?
Is it not on the tweet? I thought it was.
It might be.
I will. The Isaiah. It wasn't. I thought, as he explained it earlier, it was like some picks that led to like Paul Grant or Bill Curley. It was like. It
wasn't Curley, because that's the first name that came in my head. But that would have been a draft pick rather than didn't we get a player back?
I'm taking a look here.
While you're doing that, 2014 on this date, the Wilfs say, sorry, we're not putting that super duper bird safe glass on U.S. Bank. If some birds die, they're going to die. A lot of controversy then at the time, if you recall.
Took a stand, yeah.
2022. The Aurora lose the championship after their undefeated first season. A rare postseason hiccup for the Aurora. Now, we didn't know then, but that's been the history of the program.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
They were kind of officially welcomed to town, I think, as a Minnesota team, though, when that happened.
That's true.
It made sense.
They fit.
Yeah.
They fit the pattern.
It checked out.
Did you find the rest of the deal?
Bill Curley, James Robinson, and a conditional first-round draft pick.
That makes sense. I thought it was Curley. James Robinson, who is a wing player, guard, right? He could fill it up. Score a little bit.
Yeah.
He was streaky.
That was a great Trent Tucker, James, Hollywood, Robinson.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
That was another great double T because he was doing the games back then.
On this date, what is today, the 23rd?
Yes.
50 years ago today, or tonight, actually. An historic football moment that, again, a lot of our audience probably isn't even familiar with. Dateline, downtown, lakefront, Chicago, Illinois. Right on the lake, Soldier Field. The 42nd and final edition of the Chicago College All-Star Game. A game that annually pitted the best college football players in America against the reigning Super Bowl champion. An ingenious idea for its time, better than a regular preseason game, right? It's like, it's kind of cool. So, because it's the Super Bowl champion against a bunch of college kids who are about to go pro. This was the 42nd and final edition of said game, July 23, 1976. It ended early. It was called late third quarter because of a monsoon. We're going to play, I think it's Frank Gifford on the call, a little play-by-play, and he'll give you a little taste. When I say monsoon, I mean you could barely see the field between rain, hail, winds, etc. Let's listen.
Hanratty has come into the lineup, and it is pouring here in Chicago. Hanratty on his very first play, firing out to Tommy Riemann, and a flash of lightning, and believe me, it is coming down. Lee Trevino at the Western Open a year ago here in Chicago, and lightning caught him a little bit, and some of the fans, I think, remember about that. Many of the fans have pulled out, and we frankly don't blame them. Lightning crackling all around Soldier Field here in Chicago. Franco Harris obviously a little miserable on the sidelines. Turn on the rain. 5-yard penalty offside.
All right.
Where you can't see anything.
It's you literally can't see anything. You can fade it. Different era, right? Because whenever there's even a hint of lightning in this day and age, game's called right there, or it's suspended at least, right? And the fans are supposed to go underneath the building, whatever. Well, eventually, this got so out of hand that the officials, in fact, I think the Steelers are ahead 24-0. So they permanently suspend the game with 1:22 remaining in the late in the third quarter, okay? And the kicker is, and eventually they get to this on the play-by-play, the kicker is once they call the game, fans start running onto the stadium, onto the field, and they're doing the slip and slide. They're grabbing stuff. They knocked down one of the goalposts. In addition, it was like dogs and cats living together, a complete mess that indeed took place. And again, it's a game that was once a big tradition. I think started by the Chicago Tribune. I think they were the big sponsors of this thing back in the day. The idea of, college all-stars against the defending Super Bowl champion. And back then, the players played. Like, they may not play the whole game, but you had starters play for the defending champion.
Crazy.
Something that would be considered reckless and absurd today, right? Given the circumstance, especially against college kids.
Yep.
You say, well, they're going to try to make a name and all that. So that's 50 years ago tonight. And I bring it up also to ask a broader question that I'd like us to explore intermittently for the next several weeks, maybe even leading close to training camp, perhaps even a little bit beyond. Before, certainly, we would wrap it up before probably the start of the National Football League season. What was life like back in 1976? For those who remember it, for those who've read about it, I remember it, obviously. And I think there's a lot of tentacles to this. We can talk about politics. We can talk about pop culture. We can certainly talk about what life was like in Minnesota 50 years ago this summer. Sports standpoint, again, pop culture standpoint, etc. When I did the basic Google, what was life like in 76? Here's what comes up off the top. In 1976, Americans celebrated the bicentennial. That's, of course, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. While the nation experienced high patriotism and unity, the daily life was still shadowed by the turbulence of the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal, economic stagflation, and widespread reliance on analog communication and transportation. I don't think we had anything digital then, did we? We didn't have very much,
Right,
as I recall it. Technology. 1976, April 1, 1976, Apple Computer, founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, launching the tech revolution. 50 years ago, this was not the summer, this was the spring, April. Smoking cigarettes in the section on public life, ubiquitous in public areas, including indoor spaces, restaurants, offices, and on airplanes.
lucky.
Fashion, entertainment. People listen to rock bands on something called vinyl records. Watch television as a family, turning into shows like Donnie and Marie and Laverne and Shirley. And embrace some of the blockbuster releases of the era, which at some point we might even talk about. 50 years is a long time. It's not surprising that a lot of things would change, but what comes to mind for those in our audience old enough to have lived through it, if you're given the opportunity to answer that question from somebody younger than you, what was life like in 1976? And we don't have to romanticize it. The notion that back in my day it's always better. Not necessarily. There might be a few things you miss, but there might be a few things you say, nah, not so much. No, I'm not going to be nostalgic about this or that. Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line, wide open. 646-86. Top of the hour pause. Dr. Dan's inbox will be opened at about a half hour. And, of course, Alec Lewis is scheduled to join. Vikings conversation continues at 5:30.
You're listening to Barreiro on the Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored